Hello everyone. Good morning or unsa ba, good afternoon or good evening, whatever time you are watching this right now. So I hope everyone was able to submit their lesson 1 modules na. So this is going to be the second lesson for the first module. So we have lesson 2, the analysis of transactions and the rules of debit and credit. So I guess some of you have stock knowledge as to what debit and credit is all about. For some, this will be new, so I hope you guys learned something from this lesson. As always, I'd like everyone to please comment your name and section, as this will serve as your attendance for this lesson. So at the end of the lesson, you are expected to first be able to define what business transaction is. Second is you be able to identify, analyze, and measure a business transaction. And last objective is you will be able to apply the rules of debit and credit. So, what is a business transaction? Sabi dito, a business transaction is an economic event that is recorded in an organization's accounting system. Such a transaction must be measurable in money. So what is an economic event ba? So an economic event is an event that is consequential to the business entity, comprising of transactions that are measurable in terms of money. So for example, kanang purchase of goods, sale of materials, that is an economic event. But it involves the business and it is measurable by money, or it has a monetary amount or value. So other examples of business transactions, we have buying insurance from an insurer, buying inventory from a supplier, selling goods to a customer for cash, or selling goods to a customer on credit, or that is accounts receivable. Paying wages to employees, that is also a business transaction. Tapos obtaining a loan from a lender is also a business transaction, and selling shares to an investor is also a business transaction. Now we identify, analyze, and measure business transactions. So not all business activities are accountable. So hindi daw lahat ng business activities accountable. So ano ba yung business activities na ina-account natin? So when we talk about account, ito yung ano ba yung i-record natin sa books ng ating business. So business activities are said to be only accountable when they affect the assets, liabilities, and owner's equity. So for example, if our business buy an asset, so bumili tayo ng, let's say, company van, so that is an asset. Naapektuhan ba yung asset natin? Of course, maapektuhan siya, di ba? So that means that this is a business activity that should be recorded or accountable. Why? Because when we bought the van, naapektuhan yung asset natin, tumaas yung asset natin. So that is a business activity that should be recorded. So if you can hear the dogs right now, they're so busy. They're fighting. So there are two kinds of transactions, the external and internal transactions. So external transactions involves economic resources by a business enterprise with another business enterprise. Thus the word externals of gawas. Example, selling of services and goods to customer. So that is ikaw yung nag-sell ng services and goods sa customer, external, that is an external transaction. That is also a business transaction. Next, we have the internal transactions. These transactions are events that happen or take place within the business enterprise only. Example, conversion of raw materials into finished products. So, kung ang imong business is manufacturing, naga-manufacture ka ng mga products. So, ang katong raw materials na moagi sa production, that is an internal transactions, which magihanan ninyo sa cost accounting, and that should also be recorded or to be accounted for. So, let's proceed with the rule of debit and credit. So we have here debit, which stands for the value received, and credit, the value parted with in a transaction. In short, for every value na na-received, another value is given away as an exchange. So in accounting, if you can observe with this the debit side is on the left, right? That's the left side, while the credit side is on the right. So pag meron tayong ma-receive, that item na atong madawat sa atong business should be debited. If meron tayong pinalabas sa business, that item should be credited. So, debit, pag natay madawat, debit atong i-record. Pag natay ipagawas, credit atong i-record. So, debit and credit. A debit is an accounting entry that either increases an asset or expense account or decreases a liability or equity account. It is positioned to the left in an accounting entry. So, kanina na siya sa left. Pati ito na slide, yung debit nasa left. A credit naman is an accounting entry that either increases a liability or equity account or decreases an asset or expense account. So, it is positioned to the right in an accounting entry. So, let's apply the rule of debit and credit ha. But this time, hindi mo na siya business transaction. So, let's say, if Simon gives you an alcohol and you will give her or him, na dapat siya, him a mask, what should be the entry? So, ano yung entry mo? Nakadawat ka daw ng alcohol from Simon. You, then you, in exchange, naghatag po kang mask siya. What should be the entry? So, of course, what we should do first is analyze the transaction. Binigyan ka ng alcohol. So, of course, naka-receive ka ng alcohol, assuming that you received it. And you have to remember that magdi-debit tayo if we receive something. So, in this case, we debit alcohol, which is the item na ato nadawat. So, don't forget that debit is on the left side always. Next, let's again analyze the transaction. You received an alcohol, so nag-debit tayo ng alcohol. Now, we should not forget that in a transaction, if you receive something, you must have parted something or may binigay ka rin. So, because the rule of debit and credit states that the debit and credit side should always be equal. So here, since nagbigay tayo ng face mask in exchange for the alcohol, again, nagpalabas tayo ng item. So again, pag magpalabas tayo ng item, that is a credit. So we credit mask, which is, look, asa siya na side? In the right side. So nakadawa tayo ng alcohol, we debit alcohol. Nagpalabas tayo ng mask, we credit the mask. So like I said earlier, the debit should always be equal with the credit. So debit and credit should always be equal in the transaction. So let's proceed to business transaction naman. So let's make an entry. But first, you have to always put in your mind that analyzing the business should always be from the perspective or the view of the business. So if you record something, you should act as if you are the business. So let's make a journal entry. So what is a journal entry nga pala? So a journal entry is is a record of the business transactions in the accounting books of a business. So let's say ito na yung example. So the business bought a car for cash worth 850,000. So ang event is si business daw bumili siya ng car. Tapos for cash 850,000. So first question, sino bang bumili ng car? Of course, the business. So, is it accountable? Kailangan ba natin siyang i-account? Of course. Why? Because may nag-involve siya ng money and tapos maapektuhan po itong asset, liability, ang asset and ating equity. So, of course, i-account natin siya. What is the value na nadawat? The car. Ano yung part natin? Cash. So, ano yung peso equivalent of the exchanges? 850,000. So, since nakadawa tayo ng car, we debit car 850,000, the left side. And since gibayaran na to ang car for cash, 850,000, so magpagawas po the cash credit worth 850,000. Gets? Dali na kayo na siya. So next, what if the business sold the car for cash worth 600,000? So what if the following transaction, we analyze again? Who sold the car? The business. So is it accountable? Yes, because that is a business transaction. Ano yung value na na-receive? Nakadawat tag cash because gibaligyan nato ang car. And for how much? 600,000. Ano yung value na gipart nato? We parted the car. Baligyan mo nato siya sa ipagawas mo na tong car. So we credit car, we debit cash worth 600,000. Now, let's proceed to what is a normal balance. So, a normal balance is the side of the T account where the balance is normally found. So, when an amount is accounted for in its normal balance side, it increases the side, it increases on that account. So, on the contrary, when an amount is accounted for in the opposite side of its normal balance, it decreases that amount. So, para madaling maintindihan, the normal balance is the side of which the account normally increases. So let's say, ang normal balance ng asset is the debit side. So since ang normal balance is debit, lahat ng mga debit sa asset, nagapa-increase na siya sa asset. So lahat ng credit naman sa asset, nakapababa na siya sa asset. So again, the normal balance is where the accounts normally increases. So sa credit naman, ang normal balance daw sa liability is credit side. So pag merong liabilities na naka-record in credit, mataas po ng liabilities because that is the normal balance. Pero kung nag-debit sila account na liability, mugamay na po itong liability because that is the opposite of the normal balance of credit. So, ito yung example ng normal balances. So, this is the T account, ladies and gentlemen. Tinatawag siyang T account kasi para siyang T. So, yung asset, let's say asset, ang normal balance ng asset, debit. So, di ba? Again, normal balance is where it normally increases. So, sa asset daw, yung normal balance niya, debit. Nag-decrease ang asset if naay gina-credit na account. Sa liability naman, ang normal balance niya is credit and the opposite, of course, is the debit. And equity, the normal balance is credit and the opposite is the debit. So, balikan natin. Normal balance. Dun sa amin, when we first encountered this, first year accountancy, memorize lang talaga namin. Sa debit, we call the ADE or AID, asset, drawings, expenses, that is debit. Sa credit naman, you just memorize LCI, which stands for liabilities, capital, and income. So, kanta ko na siyang tabang na si AID and si LCI, debit and credit. So, yeah, that's it for this lesson. Medyo short lang siya kasi ito lang yung mo to siya ang topic for lesson 2. So, your module requirements is you have to answer all the tasks again on the application part of the module. So, if you have any questions, feel free to ask me on Facebook. I'm always available except if 9 p.m. now onwards. So, yeah, that's it. Thank you.